Okay, character creation. That's character creation. Check with your dungeon master. And now we're back to, where am I here? First level experience. That's first level. You're going to create a first level character. You roll your ability score. You're going to drop a 1 type thing and character creation type thing. You can go to second level with your ability scores off a character sheet at 0 type thing. So now that is your abilities on the strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma. Now in that type of thing, that's first, and then you choose your class and race. Now the way these things are listed, that's score points and score modifier. So we're going to start with, instead of rolling type thing, we're going to take points. That's going to be the first one. So now that's score, and then that's modifier. And from here type thing, and that type of means is, let's see here, that's score in points. That's score in points. Score in points type thing here, in that type thing in that sense. Now that's page 8, and that's score in modifier. That's modifier to M, the modifier, and score to score. That's score to score in modifier to points. We have a character type thing. That's first level type thing, and that means 0 experience off of page 22. That's first, and that's 0. That's first. That's first, and that's 0 to first type thing. That's 1. And now we've got 1 to first. Still at first level type thing. We haven't done anything yet, so we're still a first level character. And we're going to put 1 up at the top. We're a first level character. We have first level character type thing. That's here, with strength and con type thing. And all the scores are blank. And because we're starting character with 0 experience type thing at first level. We have 0 experience, which is next to it. So that's 0 on page 22, going to the side of 4, going to the other side, and that's 0 with the 1 to ST on it, but it's also a 1 on it, but it's actually a first level character. It's first. And you have to separate the ST out, and it's very confusing type thing in that means. And drop the ST out type thing in that type of sense, and that's 1. That's just the number 1 type thing in that means. Right then and there. So now it's a first level character type thing in that means. That's first. That's score points, and that's score modifier. That's the way that sheet was listed type thing, the score to points and score to modifier. Now we're going to do constitution type thing on that sense. So now we're going to fill in 1 ability type thing. Yes, there's other abilities type thing, but we're going to fill in 1. So now we're going to go get our first ability while as being a first level character. That's your points type thing in that type of sense. We're going to start this in reverse type thing. That's a 17 type thing in that type of sense to points. And that's 17, 2 points type thing in that type of sense. And that's 17 up to points type thing. So that's 17 to points. We're going to put 17 underneath points. But see now, on that type thing, that's backwards compared to the grid. But we're going to start with that. We're going to put points there at 17. Now that 17 on that grid had a corresponding at the bottom, which is the top of that grid, an 18 type thing in that type of sense. Now we're going to go up to an 18. And that's an 18 up to score, and that's a score to 18. Now that's 17 points to 18 score taking in that type of sense. Now in that type of thing, this was out of order taking in that type of sense. Now we're going to take that 18 taking in that type of sense. That was our points taking in that type of sense. And that's a score taking in that type of sense. So now in that type of thing, see that? It says ability on page 22. At the first level, 0, 4, 2, first, ability, score. Not points, score. So we're going to use the word that matches up with that taking in that type of sense. So now, points has a number in it taking in that type of sense. And that starts with a P over score, but it's implied taking in that type of sense that both of those are the same. But then score taking in that type of sense, here, in that type of thing, is score matches up with score. Both of those start with an S taking in that type of sense. And you're going to use the S type thing, and the S had the 18, not the 17 type thing in that type of sense. So now, in that type of thing, instead of using the 17, we're going to use the 18, one higher type thing, That's the score type thing in that type of sense. That's your ability score type thing. That's also the word at the top of page 8 type thing in that type of sense. That's the word score on page 8 type thing at the top. Not the word points, but the actual word score, which is the 18. Now, from reading top to bottom, we're going to read side to side. That's an 18 and 19 type thing. That 19 is still under the word score type thing in that type of sense. Now, from the 19, we're going to leave that type thing in that type of sense, and that's a space. And then we're going to keep reading along that line towards the side type thing that means. And that's very complicated type thing in that type of sense. That is a +4 type thing in that type of sense, and that goes up to the word modifier type thing in that type of sense. So now modifier starts with the word score type thing in that type of sense, starts with an S, because it also has a number type thing in that type of sense. Modifier starts with an M. So now in that M type thing in that type of sense, that's our M, that's modifier. Our score was an 18. Our modifier type thing in that type of sense is a 4. Now we've got it. Now we're on 4 modifier and 18 score type thing in that type of sense, and we write that in a character sheet type thing in that type of sense. So now from the Constitution type thing in that type of sense, that's here. That's ability score. It's got an S in it type thing. And that's an 18 type thing in that type of sense. An ability modifier, and that's a +4. 18 with a +4 type thing in that type of sense. Now from that we return back to our page 6. Roll ability scores. Choose your class and race type thing in that type of sense. Now you can choose your race at 3rd level. You could be elf or gnome or dwarf at 3rd at 3,000 experience. You're gonna have to start there. So now at 3rd level type thing in that type of sense at 3,000, you can become a dwarf. So now in that type of sense, that's race type thing in that type of thing. That's race at 3rd level type thing in that type of sense, and that's a dwarf type thing, and that means right next to it type thing in that type of sense. You choose your race at 1st level. You choose it at 3rd to 1st. So while still being 1st, you choose your race type thing in that type of sense. Now from your race type thing in that type of sense, that's going over type thing in that type of thing to page 14 type thing in that type of sense. That's plus Constitution type thing in that type of sense. Let's see, do I have one of these type things ready? Probably not. Okay, I thought I did, but I probably don't. Now, in that type thing in that type of sense, that's page 318 type thing in that type of sense. This is page 317 right here. In that type of thing in that type of sense, that's in a PHP type thing in that type of sense. That's 317, and then you turn the page from 317, and that's a character sheet. Now from the first one type thing in that type of sense, that's STR type thing in that type of sense, and that's 1. That's 2 type thing in that type of sense, that's dexterity. That's 3 type thing in that type of sense, that's constitution. That's 4, that's intelligence type thing. And the 2 bottom ones are wisdom and charisma. So that's 5, that's wisdom type thing in that type of sense. And that's 6, that's charisma. Now from that type thing in that type of sense, let's go back to dwarf. Let's go back to dwarf type thing in that type of sense. And in that type of thing, is on page 14. That's starting from the back. That's -2 charisma, so we're going to get like a red die for that one, typing in that type of sense. So now, oh, I did write those out. Good. Okay, that's a -2 charisma type thing in that type of sense. That's a -2 charisma type thing in that type of thing. And then when you go towards the rest of the line type thing, that's a constitution, and that's +2 type thing in that type of sense. And that's a +2 in that means. So now, that's a +2 and a -2 type thing in that type of sense. That one's to constitution type thing in that means. So now here type thing in that means, that's strength, dexterity, constitution type thing in that type of sense. Third one down. Strength, dexterity, constitution, and it was a +2 in front of it type thing in that type of sense. Okay, now a -2 type thing in that type of sense, +2 constitution, comma, -2 charisma type thing in that type of sense. So charisma type thing in that type of sense, that's strength, dexterity, constitution, intelligence, wisdom, and charisma type thing in that type of sense. The bottom one type thing, the 6th one gets a red one type thing in that type of sense. Now in that, that's your constitution and your charisma type thing in that type of sense. So now that's going to be another +2 to your constitution. True, in your charisma type thing, it's going to have a -2 modifier on it type thing in that type of sense. Or -2 ability score. Get back to that later type thing in that type of sense. But the bonus here type thing in that type of sense is now your race dwarf type thing in your constitution that had an 18 type thing. Let's move the modifier out type thing for right now type thing. That's a 18, 4, and a 2 ability score increase type thing in that type of sense. This is also a 2 constitution score. So now that's a score type thing in that type of sense. Oh man, lost that sheet. And I think I can put that back together again. Alright, hold on here. And that's here. And that's here. And that's here. Now, you've got a score of an 18 type of sense. And that's 18 score type thing in that type of sense. And you had a race dwarf 2 constitution score type thing in that type of sense. And so you put that in the bottom box type thing, and that means. And now in that type thing in that type of sense, that's 18 plus 2 type thing in that type of sense. And you put that in the calculator type thing in that type of sense. Now it's 18 plus 2 type thing in that type of sense, and that's 20. So now you get a 20 die type thing in that type of sense, and you go back to page 8 type thing in that type of sense. You bring this score over type thing here. You have score, and beforehand you had a 4 modifier type thing in that type of sense with an 18 type thing in that type of sense. But we just calculated a 20 score type thing in that type of sense, and now we go back to page 8 type thing that means, and you look up its modifier, and it's a 5. So now in that type of thing, you got a 4 modifier over a 5 type thing in that type of sense. And so now you have a 5 modifier at first level type thing in that type of sense. Now you read from that type thing in that means on page 23 type. That's the brown bars and that type of thing there. That's a character rolls 1 hit die each time he or she gains a new level, then applies any constitution modifier to the roll and adds the result to his or her hit points total. Thus a character has the same number of hit dice as levels. For his or her first hit dice, a first level character gets the maximum hit points rather than rolling, although constitution modifiers positive or negative still apply. For example, Vidania gets a d8 type thing in that type of sense. We're going to get a d8 type thing in that type of sense. We're going to put a 1 on it type thing right then and there. That's a d8 hit dice type thing because she's a druid. At first level, she gets off that's 1. So at first level, she gets 1. She gets 8 type thing in that type of sense. So then you turn that over to an 8 type thing right then and there. Then 8 hit points instead of rolling. She doesn't have to roll. This is a die type thing in that type of sense. That's 1, 4, 5, and 8. And that's 3, 6, 7, and 2 type thing in that type of sense. The max out of that side without rolling type thing is 1 type thing in that type of sense. Is 1 type thing right then and there, which is 8. So now that's 8 type thing in that type of sense. Now, since she has a constitution score of 13, do I have another d20 by type thing in that type of sense? No, that's a 20. 20 and sure, why not? And so with that, that's a 13 constitution type thing, 13 to 14 with a +1 modifier. Okay, now she applies the +1 from that type thing, and it joins up with the 8 type. Now she applies the +1 bonus, raising her hit points to 9. 8 plus 1 in that means. Do I have that nearby? So now you go on a calculator. That's 8 plus 1, and that's equal to 9. And it says points of 9 type thing in that type of sense. You take out a 9, d12 type thing in that type of sense. Boom. And there's your 9. Let's review. She had a 1 type thing in that type of sense there. And in that type of thing, it became an 8 max roll type thing in that type of sense. And she added her 1 modifier type thing to it. And she got a total of 9 type thing in that type of sense. While still being, let's see here. Now that says, for example, Vidania gets a d8 hit dice because she's a druid. At first level type thing, that's a 1 ST type thing in that type of sense is 1. and that's one level type thing. So at first level type thing in that type of sense, she has 9 hit points. So we can pull that out, and that's a 1 type thing in that type of sense at first, and at first level type thing, that's a 9 type thing, and that means. Now, in that type of thing, that's first level, and that's a 9. As soon as I find that 9, there we go, that's a 9. Now we go back to page 22, that's a 1 and the number 9. So that's character level first type thing in that type of sense. Now we can put our first right over the top of that type thing in that type of sense. Right there, 0 experience, 4, 2 first, ability score, and at that same first line type thing, she has 9 hit points. So at first level type thing in that type of sense, on her character sheet, in that case type thing in that type of sense, she's first level, and in that type of thing in that type of sense, in this box, she would write 9 hit points type thing in that type of sense. A first level character with 9 hit points and 0 experience. So no blame in it type thing in that type of sense, but definitely shouldn't be forced to tell you type thing in that type of thing that you're not putting 2 and 2 together. So now we did Vidania's character type thing. We've got that lined up. That's a first level character. Now we're going to do a first level character type thing of a knight type thing. Now that's a player's handbook 2. That's first level. That's a D12 type thing in that type of sense. So now we take out a D12 type thing in that type of sense, and like Vidania, she had a D8, and this is a D12. Both of them are going to roll 1. That one had an 8 on it type thing in that type of sense, which is the max on that die. The max on this die type thing, there's a 12, 11, 9, 5, 10, 7, 8, 2 type thing, and it's 12. There's a 12 type thing, that's the max on it type thing in that type of sense, to match up with the max on her die type thing in that type of sense. That's a D12 type thing in that type of sense. That's not a 1, it's 11 higher type thing. So just like the D type thing in that type of thing, here, in that type of thing here, that's a D12 type thing in that type of sense, that's a D, and then that's a 12 type thing, and that means, and then you're going to take the D away from the 12 type thing in that type of sense and be left with 12. That's the maximum type thing in that type of sense, which is 12. So now in that type of thing, in that type of sense, that's 12 type thing. Now our constitution modifier that we had at first level type thing was a 5. So now we're going to pull that 5 over type thing in that type of sense, and now we're going to add those two numbers together type thing, and that means. So now in that type of thing, that's 12 type thing in that type of sense. Vidania had an 8 type thing in that type of sense, added with their 1 constitution modifier type thing in that type of sense, and that made a total of 9 type thing in that type of sense, following the same pattern. We have a 12 type thing in that type of sense, with a 5 constitution type thing in that type of sense, and that's going to be 12 plus 5 type thing, and all this was at first level type thing. She was a first level character type thing in that type of sense. That's cool. And so in that type thing in that type of sense, that's going to be 1, 2, 12, plus 5 type thing in that type of sense, and that's going to be a total of 17. Barbarian type thing in that type of sense. There's table 3.3, the Barbarian on page 35. Morale bonus type thing in that type of sense. That's Constitution. We know that's the third ability type thing in that type of sense, right then and there. And a comma strength type thing, which is the third ability type thing, which is the first. Now in that type thing, first bonus to Constitution, which is the third. So that's 1 and 3 type thing in that type of sense. So the first and third ability type thing are going to pick up a bonus. That bonus type thing in that type of sense is going to be 4 here type thing in that type of sense on Constitution, and 4 on Strength type thing in that type of sense. If your starting Constitution was 20 type thing in that type of sense, then you're going to put that 20 next to that type thing in that type of sense, in that case type thing, and that'll become a 24 Constitution at first level type thing in that type of sense. Just like that. Now if you had a 10 Strength on the other one type thing in that type of sense, that would be 4 to 10 type thing in that type of sense. Okay, let's begin on that one type thing again. That's 10 strength type thing in that type of sense. Let's do the con one. That was a 20 con to start. You're going to add 4 to it type thing in that type of sense. Then you can find some D10s type thing in that type of sense. And that's a 2 type thing in that type of sense. And that's a 4 type thing in that means. I thought I had another D10 around here, and I don't. Yeah. Alright, oh, there it is. And I do. There's 24 in that type of sense. Now that's 20 start type thing in that type of sense. That's 20 plus 4 equal to 24 Constitution type thing in that type of sense at first level. Now, in that type of thing, sometimes in that type of thing with your dice, what you want to do, that's 1. That's also another 1. That's 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 another 1. Well, you get the idea. You want to keep some d10s around you type thing in that sense. So in that type of means, now, next time when I need to do the percentile type thing in that type of sense with the total, that die is a 20 type thing in that type of sense. There's a 11, 13, there's a 1 on it type thing, and a 15 type thing in that means. Now, in that type thing, that's page 140 type thing in that type of sense. And in that type of sense, that's critical type thing. When you make an attack roll with a 1 type thing in that means, on page 140 with the bar, and get a natural 20 on it type thing in that type of sense, in that type thing in that type of sense, that is not the 1, that's a fumble type thing, and that's a 20. Now, if you go back to 68 type thing in that type of sense, in that means type thing in that now, that's 20 type thing as a result, and on that 20 type thing in that type of sense, that is helpful type thing in that type of sense, that's a 20 versus a 50 type thing in that type of sense, and that is 30 short type thing of making them helpful. So now that's 20 versus 35 type thing in that type of sense, and that makes them friendly. And that's 20 versus 25, that makes them indifferent. That's 20 versus 20, that's unfriendly. And less than 20 type thing in that type of sense, if that was a 15 type thing here, or in that type of sense, a 7 type thing there, and that means that's a 7, that's a 17, a 15, a 1, a 13, an 11, that's 6, that's 9, that's a 14 type thing in that type of sense. Then in that, that's less than 20, and they stay hostile type thing in that type of sense. So now, initial attitude was hostile, I got a 14, and a 14 is less than 20, and their new attitude is hostile. Yeah. Okay, now percentages type thing in that type of sense. Very complicated type thing in that type of sense. That's 70 in that type of sense, divided by the century, 100 years type thing in that type of sense, right then and there. That's 70 divided by 100, and that's 0.70 type thing in that type of sense. And that's here, that's 70, that's divided by 100 type thing in that type of sense, and that's 0.7 or 0.70 type thing in that type of sense. Keeping that, which it won't, type thing in that type of sense. Now, from that type thing and that type of thing, that is 70 divided by 100 type thing in that type of sense, and this 20-sided die has a 20 type thing on it, type thing in that type of sense, over x sides to be equal type thing in that type of sense. So now that's x sides is going to equal 70% of a d20 type thing in that type of sense, which is 20 type thing. 70% of a 20 type thing, or 100% of a 20. 100% of a 20 is 20 type thing, and 70%, 30% less, is still 20 type thing in that type of sense. Let's try that type thing. That's x sides over 70 over 100. That's x sides over 20 sides type thing in that type of sense is going to be equal type thing in that type of sense to 0.7 type thing, and that means now x is going to be equal type thing in that type of sense, or it doesn't have to have a unit yet type thing in that type of sense. That's x type thing in that type of sense is 0.7 times 20 sides type thing in that means. Now in that 20 sides type thing in that means that's hold on here, 20 sides in parentheses type thing in that means. Alright, and that's 0.7 type thing in that type of sense. Now we take 0.7 times 20 type thing in that type of sense. That's 20 times 0.7 type thing, and that's 14 sides. So x is equal to 14 sides type thing in that means. Now you look at the 20 type thing in that type of sense. That's a 2, 4, 18 type thing in that type of sense. That's a 14 type thing in that means, and that's a 14 type thing in that type of sense. So if you want to get a 70% type thing in that type of sense here, now that's 70% type thing in that type of sense. That was a 70%, and if we want to get a 17%, which is a C minus on that type thing, we have a 14 sides type thing off of a d20 type thing, and that means that is what a 70 percentile represents on a d20 is the side number 14. Okay, that's more stuff at it. All right, have a great one.